Prepare to have your health questions answered here on Safe, Effective Natural Solutions with Dr. Todd Binkley, owner of Binkley Healing Center in downtown Ventura. Now, here's Dr. Todd.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Todd Binkley, board-certified doctor of non-force chiropractic and practitioner of functional medicine. I use standard diagnostic tests to identify conditions other doctors miss because they don't do all of those tests. Most people go to doctors that are paid for by insurance companies, and insurance, there is no such thing as health insurance. What we call health insurance is medical insurance. It doesn't pay to keep you healthy. It won't pay for your gym membership. It won't pay for you to get a good water filter or a HEPA filter or to do anything else that will improve your health. It pays to treat disease. It pays for when you need medical care, and therefore, in my humble opinion, it should be called medical insurance, not health insurance. And it's important. Everyone should have medical insurance. Everyone is likely to need medical care at some point. But, people get upset that it doesn't cover things that make you healthy, and that's because that's not what it's designed for. It's designed for people to pool their resources so that some among the pool can draw from it when they have a crisis. It doesn't pay to keep you healthy. If you want to be truly healthy, if you want to live long and live well, you're going to need to budget for most of that yourself. And, I wish it were otherwise. And I try to make my services as affordable as possible so that most people can get the care they need. If you or someone you love wants a consultation with me, it's $100 per half hour. I say $100 per half hour instead of $200 per hour because most of the time it just takes a half hour. Send me an email. Let me know what's going on with you. I'll email you or send you a link to my website to get a 7-page questionnaire to complete, which gives you boxes to tick for all of your symptoms. Most people have 2 or 3 things they're concerned about and think all the other stuff doesn't matter. Everything affects everything else. So I really need to see any symptom, however minor, that you're experiencing at least once a month or more. And then when you come in, we review the answers that you put on that questionnaire and discuss what's most appropriate for you, and I'll recommend appropriate testing, and you can decide what you want to do from there. So for most people, 80-90% of the time, it's $100 for a half-hour consultation, and then you'll know what it will cost and what you need to do, what the next step would be. One of the most common things people come to me for is fatigue, tiredness, lack of energy, not feeling like you have the oomph that you need to do the things that you normally do all day long, especially if it's, if nothing has changed in your life, you're still eating the same, you're exercising, you're doing everything you think you need to do to stay fit and healthy and feel good, getting good sleep, maybe even, and for some reason your energy is just declining year by year. Well, if you've been to a doctor and they've told you there's nothing wrong with you and you're still fatigued, there is something wrong with you, and we probably can figure out what that is. I've been talking about the 12 most common causes, most overlooked causes of fatigue. Last week, we covered the first 6, iron deficiency anemia. If you have a deficiency of iron, it's very often subclinical, meaning you get your blood tested, your doctor tells you it's fine. Well, it's not fine unless you do a ferritin test to really know if you have adequate iron, not only in your red blood cell count, but stored up in your tissues so that your bone marrow has enough iron readily available to make red blood cells and carry oxygen to all of your tissues all the time. So that's number 1, iron deficiency anemia. Number 2, prediabetes. Most people know what diabetes is. Prediabetes, the early stages of diabetes, can definitely cause significant fatigue because of the crash you get after having too much sugar in your blood. Low protein, number 3. Lots of people who eat plenty of protein still have low protein when we test their blood for a whole host of reasons. Dehydration, not drinking enough water, causes fatigue because your body needs water to flush out toxins and keep your brain, kidneys, joints, cardiovascular system functioning properly. And if they're not, then you will feel fatigue. Number 5, subclinical hypothyroidism. Lots of people, especially women over 50, it seems to me like half of women over 50 have subclinical hypothyroidism, meaning maybe they've been to the doctor and been told their thyroid's fine, but when I test it and test for the normal function of the gland, not just a single TSH test to see if their pituitaries working or not. If you do the actual proper thyroid evaluation, it is functionally low, and that very frequently contributes to fatigue. It happens in men too. Number 6, chronic subclinical infections, meaning not a full-blown high fever, runny nose, aches and pains, cold or flu kind of infection, but an infection where you've got a bug, a bacteria, virus, fungus, mold, something that's been in some part of your body. Usually the gut's the most common place, and it's been there for a long time. But it doesn't cause your white cell count to go up when you do your complete blood count. It causes your white blood cell count to go down because your immune system is so challenged that it can never completely fight off that bad bug. And it causes a drain on your system, and your white blood cell count goes down. There are ways to boost it, to support the immune system, to finally fight off that bug once and for all, and get your white cell count back up to normal and your immune system functioning properly. So that's the first 6. Number 7 on our list of the dozen most commonly overlooked causes of fatigue: subclinical B vitamin deficiency, anemia. Again, subclinical meaning you can go to 100 doctors and they'll all tell you you're not deficient in vitamin D. They'll even test your vitamin D levels in your blood directly. I don't recommend testing your vitamin B blood levels. That test is really just to see if there's something wrong with your liver, to see if it's too high often, too low for other reasons. But the main thing is it doesn't really matter. It's kind of an exception to the rule. It doesn't really matter how much B12 is in your blood. What really matters, the best test, the most functional test, is B12 and B6, and to a certain extent B12, most importantly, B12 and folate, and to a certain extent, vitamin B6, are essential for your bone marrow to be able to make adequate red blood cells. So the best way to test if you have adequate amounts of those in your system is to just look at the CBC. When you lack sufficient vitamin B12, folate, and sometimes B6 to make red blood cells in adequate amounts, then your red blood cells, which have an average lifespan of about 3 months, will get bigger. So on a complete blood count is a measure of the size of your red blood cells, the average size of your red blood cells. It's called MCV, mean corpuscular volume. That means just the average size of a red blood cell. It's a couple other tests that measure that as well. A little bit too technical for this, but the bottom line is looking at a complete blood count is the best way to tell if you're deficient in vitamin B12, folate, and sometimes B6, because your old red blood cells that are trying to take up the slack because you're not making enough new red blood cells that you need to carry oxygen to all of your cells, your older red blood cells that are nearing the end of their lifespans get bigger on average to take up the slack. So that's number 7, vitamin B deficiency, anemia. Very, very common. I see this all the time. Number 8, vascular inflammation. Have you ever had a SED rate test? Well, probably don't even know what that is. So SED rate, sedimentation rate, erythrocyte means red blood cell, erythrocyte sedimentation rate, ESR. I know it's kind of technical, but it's an important test that most doctors never order. Unless you have rheumatoid arthritis or multiple sclerosis, some kind of an autoimmune condition or a known chronic inflammatory condition, most doctors do not test your sedimentation rate, your ESR. And this is a very important test. It measures blood viscosity. So it measures how thick your blood is. If you've ever gone to give blood or have a blood drawn, and they say, oh, your blood's really thick, or it's, they find a vein okay, but it's your blood comes out really slow. It's more like milk or cream instead of water. Well, that is because your blood is viscous. It's thicker than normal, and always the cause of increased blood viscosity is inflammation. So inflammation, the inflammatory debris produced by many, many types of illness and stress, accumulates in your bloodstream and causes your blood to become thicker. And so this test is very simple. They just takes a sample of blood, set a timer, and see how long it takes for the red blood cells to sink to the bottom of the test tube. Erythrocyte, red blood cell, sedimentation rate. How long does it take for the red blood cells to settle to the bottom? So it's an important measure of inflammation. Everyone should have that test done because so many chronic diseases involve chronic inflammation. And, doctors don't test it. Most doctors don't test it because they're not going to put you on steroids or heavy gun anti-inflammatory medications unless you have, some full-blown inflammatory disease like irritable bowel syndrome or Crohn's disease or rheumatoid arthritis, etc. But everyone should test this because you can reduce inflammation with just eating better food, getting adequate amounts of vitamin D, eating less grain, starch, and sugar, and in some cases taking supplements like turmeric, fish oil, a whole host of other things. There's lots of natural ways to reduce your inflammation. And if you reduce vascular inflammation, it makes your blood flow better. It makes it provides more oxygen. It makes it easier for your heart and your circulatory system to provide oxygen to all of your cells, which has the net effect of increasing your energy. So if you have vascular inflammation, it causes the opposite effect. It causes fatigue and lack of energy. But this is really important because reducing, preferably eliminating, but reducing to as little as possible any inflammation in your bloodstream is also super important for preventing heart disease and dementia and even cancers. Reduce your risk of cancers, reduce the side effects of treatment on if you get cancer. I mean, most of the causes of chronic disease and death throughout the Western world involve some component of vascular inflammation. But it's also nice just to have more energy. Number nine on our list of the 12 most commonly overlooked causes of fatigue, vitamin D deficiency. So there are three things that I always tell anyone they should consider supplementing, even if they don't do a consultation with me, even if you don't ever do any blood testing. There are three things that I've just found on thousands of people over 30 years that 30 plus years, three things that most people do not get enough of from their diet. And they are adequate minerals from a good multivitamin with absorbable minerals, which is always a 4 capsule a day dose unless you weigh less than 120 pounds. Maybe it might be 3, but 1 a day multivitamins are useless. The minerals that your body can actually absorb take up space. They're bulky. They won't fit into one tablet. So there's all 1 a day multivitamins are not really going to do what you think they're going to do. So a good multivitamin mainly for the minerals, adequate fish oil for the omega-3 fatty acids that have so many beneficial effects on your brain and heart health, joints, controlling inflammation, a very long list, and vitamin D. The adult dose for vitamin D, standard adult dose, if you want your immune system to be healthy and your heart and your brain and virtually every tissue in your body. Look up benefits of vitamin D online. There's thousands and thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of studies documenting the beneficial effects of vitamin D. And but most people think, oh yeah, I'm taking vitamin D. I take 1,000 every day. Well, 1,000 international units of vitamin D is what you should give a newborn infant. That's an infant dose. The RDA for vitamin D is 400 units a day, a little bit more if you're pregnant or elderly. And that's just ridiculous. That's barely enough to keep your bones from collapsing. So that's what that RDA is based on. The RDA, 400 units, is enough to prevent rickets or osteomalacia. And it's to prevent your bones from collapsing. It won't even prevent osteoporosis, and it certainly won't keep your immune system strong. Your immune system is totally dependent on adequate amounts of vitamin D. And adequate amounts, the research shows, is having a blood level between 50 and 90. 50 and 90. So the only way to really know if you're getting adequate vitamin D is to get a blood test. And don't just get the test. Most doctors will order this test for you now because the information on it is out there. Most doctors know that it is important, its effect on your immune system. But they ignore most of the more important functional research that shows all the things that I'm always talking about. And on the form, LabCorp Request, hospital forms, whatever lab, the medical range for vitamin D is now 30 to 100. 10 years ago, it was 20 to 100. They raised it up to 30, but that's still not enough. It should be between 50 and 90. So if you ask any doctor to order the vitamin D test for you, they probably will, and your insurance will pay for it if they do. But don't just ask them if it's normal. Ask them the number. The number you're looking for is somewhere between 50 and 90. So most doctors will say your vitamin D is fine if it's above 30. They might even say it's high if it's 40, which is ridiculous because the medical range is 30 to 100. The healthy range is 50 to 90. It is possible to take too much vitamin D, but it almost never happens. And when it does, you just stop taking vitamin D for a month and stay out of the sun. It goes back to normal. So most people are functionally vitamin D deficient for your immune system to function normally, which will prevent fatigue. If your immune system is not functioning normally, you will be fatigued. Most people need to take 5,000 units of vitamin D per day. Number 10 on our list of the 12 most commonly overlooked causes of fatigue, hydrochloric acid deficiency. So your stomach makes hydrochloric acid. You often hear that it's important to maybe drink alkaline water and eat vegetables to keep your system alkaline. You don't want to be acidic. Acid is bad. Well, acid is bad in a lot of places, but there's 2 places in your body where you want to be acidic. You want your skin to be slightly acidic, so, constantly washing all of the skin cells and there's a normal film on your skin that keeps it healthy, even a microbiome, normal bacteria that live on your skin to keep it healthy. And if you're constantly washing all that off with really strong soap, which is all soaps are alkaline, then it can, cause skin dryness, dandruff, skin rashes, etc. You want your skin to be slightly acidic, but much more important, your stomach should be a boiling cauldron of strong hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid is one of the strongest, not the strongest, but near the top of the list. It's one of the strongest acids in chemistry, and your body makes it every day in your stomach. You have parietal cells in your stomach that make hydrochloric acid to digest your food, and these cells are surrounded by mucus-producing cells that protect the rest of your stomach from the effects of that strong acid. So it's a beautiful system. It's got this wall of mucus-making cells that protect the stomach itself, interspersed with little jets that squirt out really, really strong acid so you can digest your food without digesting your stomach. Well, if that mucus breaks down in your stomach, then you get an ulcer. If that mucus breaks down in your small intestine, just past the stomach, then you get an ulcer in your stomach. Fortunately, most people don't get that. And the other thing that you think about with too much acid is GERD, gastroesophageal reflux. If you're getting heartburn, if that acid that's supposed to be in your stomach leaks up into your esophagus, into the tube that goes from your mouth and the back of your throat down to your stomach, you don't want acid in that either. You want strong acid in your stomach, and you want a strong muscle sphincter, the valve between your esophagus and your stomach, to close off and keep the acid in your stomach. So many, many, many people have hydrochloric acid deficiency as they get older. Even 20s, 30s, and 40s, I see people with this. There's many reasons for that. Starting with the most obvious one, if anyone is taking any kind of acid blocking drug, from the simplest things like over-the-counter Tums or Tagamet, all the way up to prescription proton pump inhibitors like Nexium, any acid blocking drug, Protonix, Prevacid, anything that blocks acid in your stomach is a problem, because you need acid in your stomach. You don't want acid in your esophagus, because if you let that go on for too long, you can get an ulcer, or you can get a dramatically increased risk of throat cancer. So that's not good, and there's ways to test for that. But there's lots of ways to keep acid strong in your stomach without having it leak up into your esophagus, and that's part of a subject for another talk. But hydrochloric acid deficiency is really important, because if you don't have enough acid in your stomach, then you won't digest protein. Really, the most common cause of low protein people I talked about earlier. If you can be eating a steak every day and still end up with low protein in your bloodstream if your stomach isn't making enough acid to break down that protein so that it can enter your bloodstream and enter your cells. Hydrochloric acid is also essential to break down vitamin B12, iron, calcium, and a host of other minerals. So let's say that again. You have to have adequate hydrochloric acid in your stomach to break down, digest, and assimilate protein, vitamin B12, iron, calcium, magnesium, and several other minerals. Well, we've all heard of these. These are really important. And it's also your first line of defense. Hydrochloric acid in your stomach is the first line of defense against all intestinal infections. So if you've ever heard of somebody who went out and had a bad meal and someone next to them, with them, had the same food, you get sick, the other person didn't, what's the difference? Well, it's partly a numbers game. If you ate the exact amount of the same food, so you're introducing the same number of pathogenic bacteria into your stomach, then the difference is one person had more acid in their stomach to kill those bacteria before they got into your bloodstream to cause an infection. So both chronic infections and deficiencies, anemia caused by B12 and iron deficiency, and low protein, all of these things cause fatigue. Hydrochloric acid is a very common cause of fatigue because of these things. Number 11 on the list of the most common overlooked causes of fatigue, coenzyme Q10 deficiency. CoQ10 is essential for every cell in your body, especially the kidneys, heart, all of your muscles. It's made by your liver, but natural production of it peaks around age 25. After age 25, when you're young, you injure yourself, you do all kinds of crazy things in excess, and you recover quickly, in part because your body cranks out coenzyme Q10 to rebuild, produce energy in the mitochondria, the powerhouse of every cell in your body, and keep your heart and your muscles strong, keep your kidneys functioning. But after age 25, that production starts to decline. And so there's easy ways to test for this to see if it's deficient. And many people are deficient in coenzyme Q10. And if you are, that will dramatically increase your risk of fatigue. Number 12 on the list of the top 12 most commonly overlooked causes of fatigue, side effects of medications, especially two classes of medications: statin drugs that lower cholesterol and mood-altering drugs for anxiety and depression. So all the statin drugs, Lipitor, atorvastatin, Zocor, simvastatin, directly block the production of CoQ10 in the liver. So that's how they cause a lack of energy, because you need CoQ10 to produce energy in every cell in your body, and you need CoQ10 to keep your heart strong. So very few people really need to take statins if they're willing to eat better food and take safe, effective cholesterol-lowering supplements instead of cholesterol-lowering drugs. Antihistamines, muscle relaxants, and especially antidepressants like trazodone, Lexapro, Paxil, Prozac, Cymbalta, Effexor, Elavil, and some blood pressure drugs, beta blockers like metoprolol and propranolol, opioids like hydrocodone, oxycodone, codeine, and tramadol, and benzodiazepines used to treat anxiety and seizure disorders like lorazepam, which is Ativan, diazepam or Valium, alprazolam or Xanax, clonazepam or Klonopin. These are all really common, millions and millions of people take these drugs, and they all frequently cause fatigue and drowsiness. So many people need these drugs, but safe, effective, natural alternatives are often available. I'm Dr. Todd Binkley. We have gotten through the top dozen most commonly overlooked causes of fatigue. Check out my other website, fatiguefreeliving.com, to see more information about that. And one of the many, many, many case studies that I've had the good fortune of helping people with over the years to eliminate fatigue and keep it at bay forever. Thank you so much for listening. If someone you know has fatigue and has been told that there's nothing wrong with them, please tell them about this show, which will be available on my website in a week or so, and on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, etc. All the past episodes of this show are available there for you to share with friends and loved ones to find out how they can take better care of themselves and live long and live well. Thank you for listening. I look forward to the privilege of speaking with you right here next Friday at 2 p.m. Have a fantastic weekend.
You've been listening to Safe, Effective Natural Solutions with Dr. Todd Binkley. If you have a health question you want discussed on the show, email your health questions to Dr. Binkley at binkleyhealingcenter.com. Take advantage of this opportunity to ask questions for yourself and for your loved ones, because our health matters. Join him next Friday at 4 p.m. for safe, effective natural solutions right here on 98.3 The Word, KDAR.